Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we will dive deep into the explosive Tuesday, April 14 spoilers, focusing on the massive showdown between Katie and Brooke, Daphne's heroic confrontation with Ivy, and the shocking physical brawl between RJ and Will at Forrester Creations. I genuinely believe that we are witnessing some of the most compelling television this show has produced in years, and the upcoming confrontation between Katie Logan Spencer and Brooke Logan Forrester is the absolute pinnacle of this current era. I feel so incredibly energized by the way the writers are handling this sisterly feud, because it is not just about petty jealousy, it is rooted in decades of deeply personal, deeply painful history. The spoilers reveal that Katie is not backing down when it comes to using Eric Forrester's designs and moving forward with the rest of the collection, and I think this is the most empowered we have seen Katie in a very long time. The way I see it, Katie has spent her entire life existing in the shadow of her older sister, constantly compromising her own ambitions to keep the peace in the Logan family. I feel like this decision to stand her ground and use Eric's designs is her final declaration of independence, and it is absolutely thrilling to watch. I think Brooke's reaction to Katie's business decisions is incredibly telling, and it perfectly encapsulates why I am so invested in this storyline. When Brooke gets the news regarding Katie and Bill Spencer's next fashion event, the spoilers say she will be completely furious and disgusted. In my opinion, Brooke's disgust has very little to do with the actual business of Forrester Creations and everything to do with her loss of control over her younger sister. I feel like Brooke has always viewed herself as the ultimate authority figure within the Logan family, and the idea that Katie is making massive, legacy-defining decisions without her approval is completely shattering Brooke's worldview. The way I interpret it, Brooke is projecting her own insecurities onto Katie, masking her fear of irrelevance with a facade of righteous business indignation. I am absolutely fascinated by the specific dialogue teased in these spoilers, particularly the moment where Brooke accuses Katie of being heartless. I think the writer's choice to use that specific word is nothing short of brilliant. I feel like Brooke calling anyone heartless is the ultimate form of psychological projection, considering the sheer amount of emotional wreckage Brooke has left in her own romantic wake over the decades. The way I see it, Brooke is trying to weaponize Katie's emotions, trying to make her feel guilty for prioritizing a business launch over their personal sibling issues. I genuinely think Brooke believes that because she operates purely on impulsive emotion, everyone else should too. I feel so vindicated watching Katie refuse to accept that label, because Katie is not being heartless. She is being a shrewd, focused, and determined businesswoman. I love the way the spoilers described Katie lashing out and blasting Brooke for thinking the world revolves around her. I feel like I have been waiting literally years for Katie to look Brooke in the eye and deliver that exact sentiment. I think it is the absolute truth, and the fact that Katie is finally saying it out loud makes me feel so incredibly proud of her character growth. I believe that Brooke has lived in a self-constructed universe where her feelings, her romances, and her opinions are the central axis upon which Los Angeles spins. The way I interpret Katie's dialogue here is that she is finally shattering that illusion. I feel like Katie making it clear that not everything is about her sister is the emotional climax of their entire dynamic, completely redefining the balance of power between them. I know a lot of people in the fandom are saying this storyline is dragging, or that they are tired of the Logan sisters fighting, but I actually think the slow burn is exactly what is needed, because I feel like rushing this would do a massive disservice to their history. I genuinely think we are missing the point if we just view this as a typical soap opera catfight. I feel like this is a fundamental restructuring of their family hierarchy. The way I see it, Katie leaning on Bill Spencer for this fashion event is also a massive trigger for Brooke, because Bill represents another area where Katie has successfully carved out her own territory. I think Brooke cannot stand the fact that Katie and Bill are a united front, successfully executing a vision that Brooke actively opposes. I think the visual staging of this upcoming showdown is going to be crucial. I feel like the director needs to place Katie behind the CEO desk or in a position of physical authority, forcing Brooke to stand and react from a place of vulnerability. I believe that the lighting in the room should be stark and bright, reflecting the harsh, undeniable truth that Katie is delivering. I feel so passionately about this because for too long, Katie has been filmed as the victim, the one crying in the softly lit shadows. I think this scene requires Katie to be illuminated, powerful, and completely unbothered by Brooke's emotional manipulation. The way I interpret Katie's current mindset, she has completely detached from the need for Brooke's validation, and that is the most dangerous thing Brooke could possibly face. Transitioning over to Daphne Rose Walton, I am completely blown away by the trajectory her character is taking in these upcoming episodes. The spoilers reveal that Daphne will corner Ivy Forrester and insist that this whole mess involving Electra Forrester's love life has gone on long enough. I feel like this is the absolute best they have written Daphne, because they are taking her deep, personal pain and channeling it into a fierce, protective heroism. I genuinely think we have to look at Daphne's actions here through the lens of her recent devastating negative pregnancy test. I feel like Daphne is walking around with this profound silent grief after experiencing those phantom symptoms and genuinely believing she had conceived a child with Carter. The way I see it, that kind of heartbreak strips away all your tolerance for petty games and manipulation. I think Daphne pushing Ivy to stop scheming and come clean to Elektra about how she orchestrated her breakup from Will Spencer is a direct result of Daphne's current emotional fragility. I feel like Daphne is looking at Ivy, playing God with these young people's lives, manipulating their futures, and it makes her physically sick because Daphne is currently struggling with her own lack of control over her future and her fertility. In my opinion, Daphne demanding the truth is her way of trying to restore some order and honesty to a world that suddenly feels incredibly cruel and unpredictable to her. I believe that when you are suffering a private loss, the lies of others become absolutely intolerable, and that is exactly what I feel is driving Daphne in this confrontation. I am obsessed with the specific dynamic between Daphne and Ivy in this scene. I feel like Daphne cornering Ivy is such a powerful physical choice. I think Ivy has been floating around Los Angeles acting like an untouchable puppet master, and Daphne is the one person who is grounded enough to grab her by the shoulders and force her to look at the reality of what she is doing. I genuinely believe that Daphne sees a bit of herself in Elektra, a young woman whose life is being shaped by forces outside of her control, and Daphne's maternal instincts, which are currently aching for an outlet, are fiercely protecting Elektra. The way I interpret Daphne's dialogue, she is not just asking Ivy to stop. She is demanding a return to basic human decency. I think Ivy's reaction to Daphne's demands is perfectly in character, and it makes me love this villainous era for Ivy even more. The spoilers say Ivy will refuse to come clean, and will reiterate that Daphne needs to keep her mouth shut. I feel like the sheer audacity of Ivy telling Daphne to keep her mouth shut is going to make for incredible television. In my opinion, Ivy has convinced herself that her deceit is actually a form of love, which is the most dangerous kind of soap opera villain. I think Ivy genuinely believes that she knows what is best for Elektra, and she views Daphne as an annoying, emotional obstacle rather than a moral compass. I feel like Ivy's Australian roots and her past traumas with the Forrester family have hardened her into someone who believes that the end always justifies the manipulative means. I know a lot of fans are complaining that Ivy is being too cruel, or that her scheming is ruining the younger generation's storylines, but I actually think this is brilliant writing. I feel like we need a grounded, sophisticated antagonist who operates in the shadows. The way I see it, Ivy feeling like she is so close to locking in Elektra and RJ Forrester's future together is fascinating because it shows how deeply she misunderstands love. I think Ivy views relationships as strategic alliances, much like a corporate merger. I genuinely believe that Ivy wants Elektra with RJ because RJ represents Forrester's safety, whereas Will Spencer represents the chaotic, unpredictable energy that Ivy has always feared. I feel like Ivy is projecting her own need for stability onto her niece, completely ignoring Elektra's actual feelings. I think the mention of Melissa Dillon in this spoiler is also incredibly significant. Ivy does not want Daphne or Melissa getting in the way of her master plan. I feel like Ivy is highly paranoid about Melissa, especially since Ivy previously asked Melissa who she really was. In my opinion, Ivy recognizes a fellow schemer in Melissa, and she is terrified that Melissa is going to unravel the perfectly constructed lie that Ivy has built around Elektra and Will. I believe that Ivy's command for Daphne to keep her mouth shut is born out of pure desperation. I feel like the walls are closing in on Ivy, and the writer's choice to have Daphne be the one holding the hammer is just spectacular narrative synergy. Daphne has nothing to lose right now, making her Ivy's most dangerous adversary. Now, I want to talk about the absolute explosion of tension happening with the younger generation. The spoilers say that RJ will push one button too many during a face-off with Will, resulting in a physical fight breaking out in the workplace. I feel like my heart was racing just reading that sentence, because the build-up to this physical altercation has been masterfully paced. I think RJ and Will's rivalry heading to the next level is exactly what the show needs to solidify the stakes of this Kid Quad storyline. I genuinely believe that RJ has been walking around with an incredible amount of unearned Forrester arrogance lately, and I feel like Will has been simmering with that classic volatile Spencer rage. Putting them in a pressure cooker workplace environment was always going to end in an explosion. I'm endlessly curious about what specific button RJ pushes to ignite this fight. In my opinion, RJ is going to use Elektra moving on with him as a weapon against Will. I feel like RJ has this underlying insecurity about Will's past connection with Elektra, and I think RJ will try to mask that insecurity by gloating or making a condescending remark about Will's new romance with Melissa Dillon. The way I interpret RJ's character right now, he wants to be the golden boy, but he has a deeply petty streak. I genuinely believe that RJ will say something that crosses the line from workplace rivalry into deep, personal disrespect, and that is what will finally cause Will to snap. I feel like Will has been holding back for weeks, and this fight is the physical manifestation of all his repressed frustration regarding his manipulated breakup with Elektra. I think the setting of this physical fight is absolutely crucial to its impact. A brawl breaking out in the workplace at Forrester Creations is a massive violation of the family sanctuary. I feel like the director needs to make this fight messy, visceral, and destructive. I want to see expensive fabrics being torn, design sketches flying through the air, and mannequins being knocked over. I genuinely believe that the contrast between the high-fashion, elegant environment of Forrester Creations and the raw, animalistic violence of these two young men fighting over a girl is brilliant visual storytelling. I feel like it highlights how, beneath all the wealth and legacy, they are just two angry boys driven by ego and jealousy. I loved reading that Ridge Forrester is going to interrupt the confrontation and shut all this down. I feel like Ridge's entrance into this chaotic scene is going to be iconic. I think the writer's choice to have Ridge be the one to break it up is perfect because Ridge sees so much of his own history in both of these boys. I genuinely believe that when Ridge looks at RJ and Will fighting, he is seeing the ghosts of his own past rivalries with the Spencer men, particularly Bill. I feel like Ridge's displeasure about their unprofessionalism is going to be palpable. In my opinion, Ridge views Forrester Creations as a sacred space, and seeing his son and a Spencer treating it like a schoolyard boxing ring is going to absolutely infuriate him. I am so ready for the lectures that Ridge is going to dish out in the coming episodes. I feel like Ridge has been somewhat passive lately, and this is the perfect opportunity for him to step up as the true patriarch of the family. The way I interpret Ridge's upcoming reaction, he is not just going to be angry about the physical damage. He is going to be deeply disappointed in RJ's lack of leadership. I think Ridge expects RJ to be above this kind of petty brawling, and I feel like Ridge's lecture to Will is going to be equally intense, reminding Will that he is a guest in the Forrester house. I genuinely believe that this fight is going to force Ridge to take a hard look at the toxic environment that has been brewing under his roof, and it might even lead him to uncover the truth about Ivy's manipulations. I know some people might think a physical fight is too melodramatic, but I actually think it is the most honest expression of emotion these two characters have had in months. I feel like RJ and Will have been dancing around each other with passive-aggressive comments for too long. The way I see it, this physical release is going to clear the air, but it is also going to draw incredibly hard battle lines. I think Elektra is going to be absolutely horrified when she finds out they were fighting, and I feel like it might actually backfire on RJ. I genuinely believe that if Elektra sees the ugly, violent side of RJ's ego, she might start to question the narrative that Ivy has fed her about RJ being the safe, perfect choice. I feel like the thematic connections between all three of these plot points are just incredibly strong. We have Brooke and Katie fighting over legacy and control of the family business. We have Ivy trying to control the romantic destiny of her niece, and Daphne fighting to break that control. And we have RJ and Will physically fighting for dominance and territory. I genuinely think the overarching theme of this entire week is the destructive nature of entitlement. I feel like Brooke feels entitled to Katie's obedience. I think Ivy feels entitled to Elektra's future. And I believe RJ feels entitled to Will's defeat. The way I interpret the show right now, the writers are systematically punishing every character who tries to play God with someone else's life, and it is phenomenally satisfying to watch. I am particularly moved by how Elektra remains the oblivious center of this massive storm. I feel so much empathy for her character because she has absolutely no idea that her aunt orchestrated her heartbreak or that her new boyfriend is physically brawling with her ex over her. I think the dramatic irony of Elektra's situation is what makes this storyline so addictive. I genuinely believe that when the truth finally comes out, when Daphne inevitably shatters Ivy's secret, or when the fallout from the fight exposes the lies, Elektra's reaction is going to be earth-shattering. I feel like they are building Elektra up to have a massive emotional awakening, and I cannot wait to see her take her agency back from all the people who have been secretly pulling her strings. I think the pacing of these revelations is spot on. I feel like having Daphne confront Ivy on the exact same day that RJ and Will come to blows is a masterstroke of tension building. I genuinely believe that the energy in the Forrester building is going to be electric. Imagine the contrast of Ridge screaming at RJ and Will in the design room, while just down the hall, Daphne is quietly but fiercely threatening to expose Ivy's entire life. I feel like the show is operating at peak soap opera efficiency right now, juggling these intense, character-driven conflicts without losing the emotional core of any of them. The way I see it, every single character is acting entirely logically based on their past traumas and current desires, which makes the resulting chaos feel completely earned. I feel so incredibly invested in Katie's journey specifically. I think her showdown with Brooke is going to have massive ripple effects across the entire canvas. If Katie successfully launches this fashion event with Bill, using Eric's designs despite Brooke's disgust, I genuinely believe it will permanently alter the power dynamic at Forrester Creations. I feel like Katie is finally realizing that she does not need Brooke's permission to be great. In my opinion, Brooke's accusation that Katie is letting personal issues affect business is the ultimate hypocrisy, and I think Katie's refusal to absorb that guilt is her finest moment. I feel like Katie is stepping into her power, and I am cheering for her every single step of the way. I also want to praise the nuanced writing for Daphne. I think it would have been very easy to just make her a tragic figure crying over a negative pregnancy test, but instead they are using her grief as a catalyst for action. I feel like Daphne's pain has given her a superhuman clarity. I genuinely believe that when you are stripped down to your most vulnerable state, you can spot a liar from a mile away, and that is exactly why Daphne is the one to corner Ivy. I feel like Daphne is acting as the audience's surrogate in that scene, saying everything we have been screaming at our televisions for weeks. I think her insistence that Ivy come clean is the moral anchor of the entire episode. I feel like Ivy's desperate clinging to her master plan is tragic in its own twisted way. I think Ivy truly believes she is saving Elektra, which makes her refusal to listen to Daphne so frustrating but so compelling. I genuinely believe that Ivy's downfall is going to be spectacular, and I feel like her paranoia about Melissa Dillon is going to be the thread that unravels her entire sweater. The way I interpret Ivy's actions, she is a woman who has lost control of her own life so many times that she is now obsessively trying to control someone else's. I think it is a fascinating psychological study, and I feel so lucky that we get to watch it play out on screen. Finally, I just have to say how much I am enjoying the raw, unpolished energy of the RJ and Will rivalry. I feel like soap operas often make their younger characters too polished or too mature, but RJ and Will acting like impulsive, aggressive kids is exactly what the show needs. I think their physical fight is going to be a turning point for both of them. I genuinely believe that Ridge's intervention is going to force them to grow up, but I also feel like the resentment is only going to burn hotter beneath the surface. I think we are witnessing the birth of a lifelong rivalry that will echo the great feuds of the show's past, and I am completely here for it. In conclusion, I feel like Tuesday's episode is going to be a masterclass in character-driven drama. From Katie finally telling Brooke that the world does not revolve around her, to Daphne fiercely demanding the truth from a manipulative Ivy, to the visceral shock of RJ and Will's workplace brawl, every single moment is packed with emotional weight and historical significance. I genuinely believe that this is the best the show has been in years, and I cannot wait to see how all of these explosive confrontations change the landscape of Los Angeles forever. The way I see it, the writers are firing on all cylinders, and as a devoted fan, I am just sitting back and enjoying the incredible ride.